All right, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure all of you are at the end of an odd week and frazzled and all of that, so I appreciate your time. I am Jennifer Smith. I am the Executive Director for Washington TSA, and we will make this hopefully as painless as possible and answer all of your questions and get everybody on to your weekend. So if you have not already, please go ahead and enter your name, your school, and your email address into the chat. And then as we go through the day, if you have questions, you can just drop them into the chat too, and I will try to check that as often as possible and answer those questions as they come up. So I will start by just giving you a quick overview of TSA. We are the Technology Student Association. We are one of the 8 career and technical student organizations in Washington. And we're the only one that focuses completely on technology and STEM students and interested in STEM careers. At the state level, we work with about 175 middle and high schools, and then about 8,000 students in those schools. And at the national level, we are over 250,000 students in 48 states and 3 other countries. So let me share my screen with you quickly. Let's see, yes. This one. Let's see. So each year we have a theme. This year it is Together Towards Tomorrow. That won't really matter to you right now, but it will matter to some of the students as they start working on projects throughout the year. So a little bit more about TSA. A lot of our kids, about 75% are college bound. 39% are female or represent minorities. We regularly have 500 or 600 kids attend our fall leadership, about 1,200 attend our state conference, about 350 attend the national conference representing Washington. So career and technical student organizations are part of the CTE program in Washington. So we are considered intracurricular, meaning that students can use what they learn in the classroom in TSA and take what they learn in TSA and use it in the classroom. So I mentioned that we are one of the 8 CTSOs. Others are DECA, FFA, FBLA, FCCLA, HOSA, Skills USA, and WCTSMA, which is sports medicine. In a lot of ways, we're very similar organizations, and in some ways we're different. But we all work with a different group of kids. So DECA might work with hospitality and marketing, FFA with the agriculture kids, FBLA with kids interested in business, and so on. And we happen to serve the kids interested in technology and STEM careers. So all of the CTSOs provide leadership skills development and training, professional skills development and training, career research, career options, interaction with mentors and industry professionals, competitive events, and hands-on real-world experience. So let me get out of here for one moment and just make sure I don't have anyone else waiting to come in. Okay, we seem to be good there. So I will share my screen again. All right, so it's interesting in, you know, people say, well, how do students actually, you know, learn about real world jobs? How do they do career research? And I'll use video game design as an example. Video game design is one of our competitive events. We get a lot of kids who want to be video game designers when they grow up because they love to play video games. And I have to admit that a lot of them are kids that don't have all that many social skills. And so what they love to do is be in their room and play their video games. So they think that that's what they want to do when they grow up. So once they enter our video game design competition, they find out that to actually build a video game is a whole lot different than playing it. There's trial and error. There's times that your code doesn't work. There's, you know, the graphics design that are needed, all the bits that go into it, all the teamwork that goes into it. And they realize that being a video game designer doesn't mean just playing video games. And it's a good thing for them to learn when they're in 8th grade or when they're a sophomore instead of when they're in their 3rd year of college. But they also get a chance to see what a video game designer actually does. They might work with a mentor at DigiPen or at Microsoft. They get a chance to talk to judges about their ideas and to get feedback on what they've done. They get a chance to see what other kids are doing and talk to them about their ideas and why they did it. And it just gives them a chance. And, you know, we've got so many opportunities like that through our competitive events. If they're doing architectural, they might be working with an architect. You know, if they're doing flight, they're working with an engineer. So we take those competitions and we use them to get those kids connected to industry professionals and to see what those professionals are actually doing and find out if that's something that they're interested in, something that they're passionate about. But we're not just about the competitive events. We are also about the leadership development and those professional skills development. And so we do a lot of leadership training, and through the leadership training and through the competitive events, we help the kids work on their professional skills and develop those as well. And those are very important components to us. So we encourage students to not just be involved with the competitive events, but also to participate in the rest of what we offer. And all of the CTSOs have something similar. They have competitive events and they offer the other, you know, training and skills development. So before I go any further, is there anybody who has specific questions that they know that they want me to answer today? Or is it mostly just give you a whole bunch of information and then you will ask me the questions? Nothing. Okay. Hi, Susan.
Hi. Quick question. Hi, Jennifer. I could hang in there while you give the newbies the rundown, but I'm really curious too. I could just hang in there till later what this year's going to look like.
Yep, and we will get to that. We'll get to that quickly because everything about this year is going to be different. And so pretty much as I go through everything, I'm just going to explain it. Yeah, and the questions coming in are the same thing. Okay. Important dates, COVID considerations, perfect. All right, I will just keep going and you guys can tell me if you want me to stop, if you want me to explain anything further. So again, I will be just talking about this year. So there are some things that I will say that we're going to do that are not what we normally do, and they're not maybe what we will do in the future, but for this year, this is how things are going to work. We think that TSA and all of the CTSOs are still beneficial to the students. I'll touch on costs and everything else specifically, but the costs are going to be really low this year. There's going to be fewer time constraints, fewer conflicts with sports and other groups. And the kids are quarantined. You know, some of them are bored, some of them really need those hands-on projects that they can be doing. And we think that we can meet those needs. So as a CTE teacher, let's see, why, or a CTE director for that matter, what's the point of joining TSA? So to start with, OSPI requires that CTE teachers participate in a CTSO or do a leadership equivalency program. I think you guys are all aware of that. We did check with them because there's tons of school districts and teachers that have been contacting them, asking them if that's still a requirement this year if school is completely virtual? And the answer that OSPI is giving us is yes. They wanted to make very sure that we were providing you with the resources to help the students when it's virtual, but it is still the requirement for this year. So that's the first part of it. The benefits for students, we think that even at home, there's going to be opportunities for growth and exploration. We have a personal leadership development program that we have developed over the summer. It's short videos and student worksheets and advisor handouts. Those are accessible on our website already. You don't even have to affiliate before students can access those. And you can just send the link directly to them and tell them what you want to do. And it's something that they can do totally on their own. If you want to, let me see. Yep, we will. Okay, yes, I will share the PowerPoint, and yes, we will cover the important dates. So I will get to those. But let me go back to finishing up. So what we figured is that the first month or two of school, we're going to be absolutely chaotic for you guys as teachers and administrators. And so we wanted to try to make things as easy as possible. So we developed these leadership resources to focus on the students' individual development. We figured that's something you can just send the information out to them. You can tell them what you want them to do, and then they can work on that on their own. And you can have it where they turn in the results to you or not. For most of them, there is a group sharing piece. So if you get a chance to have a Zoom conference call and discuss some of those results, that's great. But if not, they can just do the individual pieces. And even if there's no discussion with you or with the chapter, it's still helpful for the individual students. Now, these are resources that you can use with your classes or just with your TSA members. It doesn't matter. So again, you don't have to affiliate before you have access to those leadership resources this year, and we are not charging for those. So then we will also, in the next month, be putting up more resources that are for like the chapter officer development, putting together your calendar for the year, working on your program of work, resources like that, that again, you can just share those with the students and they can do most of the work. It's not something that you have to be overseeing them doing as they go. So we figured that would get you through the first month or so of school without having to do much of anything. And it would get that leadership development kind of out of the way, if you want to look at it for that. We've always focused on the fall being about leadership development before the kids really move into the competitive events. And so we figured we'd kind of do it the same way this year. So do the individual development, do the small group leadership development if you want to do that, and then kind of move to the competitive events. So as we're going through the year, National TSA is putting together monthly challenges, and these relate to the competitive events, but they are separate. So I know right now for the month of September, the high school one is about board game design. The middle school one is about problem solving or the construction challenge. Anyway, they're just quick little activities that you can have your TSA members do if you want to. Again, they can do it without you finishing the affiliation process because they're just on the National TSA website. And when we go over resources here in a minute, I'll show you where all of that is. But those are some, just short time frame activities that you can have your students doing as well. Then you can go ahead and switch over to the competitive events. And for that, you need to affiliate because you need to get those new competitive event guides. Again, we'll go through all of that in a minute. But once you do that and share those guides with your students, they can start working on their actual projects this year for their competitive events. We have spent a lot of time getting it set up and trying to figure out the best way to do it. And so what we decided, because we can't have any sort of regional qualifying competitions this year with the restrictions, or at least we assume we can't. So we are going to have deadlines. For each event, we'll have something due at the beginning of January, on January 8th. They'll have something else due on February 19th, and then they'll have their final entry due on March 24th, whether that's in person or virtual or whatever. We're not making that final decision yet. And I will come back to these dates as well. But that's just a brief overview of what we are thinking it will look like this year. So you'll go from personal leadership development to group development to competitive events. We have taken some of our like team events that you had to have at least 3 kids or whatever. We're going to, at the state level, let individuals work on those because we know that there's going to be some constraints about students being able to work together. So we've tried to adapt as much as possible to those kind of restrictions to make it easiest for you and for the kids to still be able to participate. Do we have any questions right now? Nope. Okay. I'll just keep going then. So for our competitive events at the state level, we are still going to run all of them. And so that's, I think, 37 events at the high school level, 35 at the middle school level, and a couple of state-only events. We haven't figured out all the details. We had a lot of experience, I guess you could say. So in March, we had 10 days to switch our live state conference over to being a virtual state conference and figure out all the entries. And 10 days is not very long to do something like that. So for those of you who weren't involved, it was a crazy 10 days. But we learned a lot from it. And we also had a lot of our entries. We had the kids make videos of their entry rather than submitting it in person. And so we have a lot more video content that we can share with students and advisors this year than we ever have before, because we pretty much have something from all of the events. And so we're working right now on getting all of that up onto the website as well. So most of our competitive events require a hands-on component, whether they're building a structure or, you know, designing a house or programming a robot or, you know, anything like that. We've got a lot that have a major build component. We also have a lot that are focused on computer and IT kind of skills, data science and analytics and IT fundamentals. So we're, National TSA is pushing to bring in more of that computer science group and create more events that will, that they will be interested in as well. We also have, a lot of our events have a test component just to test their general knowledge on the topic. And we use that test as part of the competition process. We have some really fun events, fashion design, board game design, that let the kids really stretch their imagination. On-demand video is very popular. They get to star in their own 60-second movie. But all of them have something that the kids are actually doing for the competition. So it requires the students to be organized. It requires them to plan ahead, to work on their public speaking or presentation skills, put together portfolios with all the details of their project. For photography, for example, they not only have to take the pictures, but then they have to work with those photos and alter them and explain how they did that and why, and demonstrate their understanding of photographic equipment and usage. So it's really something that it's more than just take photos. You know, they're doing something with those photos. They're using the equipment, and it's something that really helps them build their skill level in that event. So that's what the kids get to do. But what about you? In all of this, you are mostly just a hands-off manager or coach. You don't build the robots or the models or come up with the ideas. You do the paperwork, you get your chapter registered, You give the students the event guides and some guidance, you know, as you go through it to make sure that they understand it. And then mostly you stand back. And I think that this year there's going to be a lot more of the standing back, because for the most part, you're not going to be seeing them every day. They're going to be working on projects, you know, at home or with their friends rather than in the classroom. You can incorporate the competitive events into your classroom as hands-on projects. We definitely have chapters who pick some of those projects and do them every year, and they have everybody in the classroom do them. And I'll show you later, but we can go through the grading rubrics, or the scoring rubrics can be used as grading rubrics. There's all the STEM correlation that you can use for frameworks. But other chapters choose to just let kids work on their own, on their entries. And as an advisor, they're just available. And we will talk more as we go through this, because there are some events that are going to be harder to do this year. And I will ask you guys for input, but since I know that most of you are new to this, you might not have as much input. Yes, we do know that some of the kids only have Chromebooks, but a lot of those students do have access to other computers at home. So I know that, for example, our district insisted that everybody have a Chromebook for doing their assignments, but most of the kids work on other laptops and have access to those equipment as well. So I do know that not all the normal tools are available, and that's something that we'll be talking about. And it's something that we looked at for making decisions about what we're doing with the competitive events. So we will come back to that. So are most of you completely new to TSA? Yes. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of yeses. Okay. Yeah, so some of you have been here before, some of you are completely new. All right, so let me stop sharing this screen. Nope. And go to sorry, give me 1 second here to switch screens. What I wanted to do is take you to the national site. So for those of you who are completely new, there we go. All right, so this is the national TSA website, and you won't spend a lot of time on here. And I will give you all of these website URLs and everything later too. But the very first thing you do each year for being a new chapter is you need to set it up through your school. You need to get that administrative approval to start a new CTSO, new club, set it up with ASB, all of that. So obviously that's where you start before you do anything else. But once you have that administrative approval, then you need to affiliate with National TSA. And that affiliation, you can call it affiliation, you can call it membership. It's an annual fee, and that gives you access to all of the competitive event guides and registration for events. So the first thing you will do is come to this tsaweb.org, and up here at the top of the screen, there's a join login link, and you will click on it. Now, there's a brand new registration system this year. And so the first time you do it, whether you're a new advisor or a returning chapter advisor, the first time you come here, you will click on this first time login link, and it will you click on this red chapter membership, and then you will follow the on-screen. So it's going to ask you for all the information about your school. And once you do that, once you provide it all, then they will send you the username and password for actually accessing the system. So when you start, you don't have to have the names of the kids that are going to be in your chapter or anything like that. You just have to enter all your school information. You'll get your username and password, and that will give you access to more information. So TSA web, join login, chapter membership to start. Once you have that username and password, you'll come to this page each time to access everything and to access your dashboard. So when you are going to affiliate, it will ask you what level of membership you want to use. And TSA provides 3 different options. The first one is a minimum of 10 students and 1 advisor. And so that's a flat fee of $220 because it's $20 per person. And again, you don't, if you only have 6 kids, you still have to affiliate 10. That's the minimum. So you do those, you just choose the minimum option, and that's what you do. You can go back and add your roster, your names later. The second option is just paying for however many students you're going to affiliate. And so if you have between 11 and 34 students that you want to affiliate, then you're just going to pay $20 per person for that level. The third option is a flat unlimited rate. And so if all of your, say all your 8th graders go through your STEM program, so you want all of them to be in TSA, then there's a $650 unlimited rate. And then you can just, as many kids as possible, or as you want, can go through that program. Now, if you start with 10 and you end up with 3 other students that want to participate, then you just add them later and you just pay the $20 per kid to upgrade, to add them to your roster. If you get to, if you start with that middle level of membership and you want to go up to the unlimited because you've got more kids, it's the same thing. You just pay the difference in the price for that affiliation. So I know that some of the chapters this year some chapters, the school pays for that affiliation fee, and some they charge the students. And I don't know how you're going to handle that if you need to charge the kids. And that's not something that we can deal with because the school pays National TSA that fee directly. So it's not something that at the state level we're involved in. So that's something that you would have to figure out with your administration. When it comes to registering for competition, and we'll come back to that later, but that is something that we can have students pay individually rather than having to go through the school. But for membership, for this initial affiliation, that's something that the school will have to do and that we can't be involved in. All right. So normally I would also talk about recruiting students, electing chapter officers, things like that, but we're kind of just putting all that on hold right now. And we'll just talk about what we're going to do and the resources. So I am going to switch over to our Washington TSA site. Can you see that? Can you see the Washington TSA website? Yes? Okay. So this is our site. And sorry. All right. Right now you can click on this red bar at the top and it will take you to the details, but we are quickly transitioning, and we'll have a better layout so that all of the resources for this year will be in one location rather than you having to go through and find them. For now, advisors, if you go to this advisors tab and down to student leadership, that's where you will find the personal leadership development challenge with the videos, the worksheets, and the advisor handouts. So that's one of the resources you will want right off the bat. If you go to competitive events and choose high school or middle school, right now there's a summary of each competitive event, but we're also working to change this because what we want is each competitive event to have a video link to it that's a demonstration of what that event looks like, and also to have the specifics for what competitive pieces they will need to turn in on what dates for each of those events. So we're transitioning this as well. There are, and I will share these with you. Let me see if I can. Sharing that and then share. So there's a, at the top of each of these high school and middle school, there's a button that says read this. I think it's for entry limits, but this is what you will get. So this is a list of the specific events that we are running this year. It talks about the individual and team. It talks about state entry limits. There's a couple of them that say that they're on hold. Dragster, I will change that because we made a decision on that one. So right now, the only things that we really have not decided whether we will run this year are the robotics events, because we're not sure about how the competitions will work, and we're waiting to see what happens with some of the like Vex Robotics competitions that they're going to try to do outside of TSA before we make a final decision. But we have, this handout is available for middle school events and for high school events. And some of these events that say that they're team events, we will change these numbers along here. But we're going to do it on a chapter by chapter basis rather than going through the system and changing it at the system level. Okay, so come back to, sorry. Let's see. All right. Okay, so back to these high school events. So a lot of the events that we run have themes or challenges. You can find the link to those at the top of this page. These are just general competitive event rules, but each event has its own rules. And then this is that entry limits handout that I was just showing you. So the other important thing for now will be under events and conferences and our calendar, that we will be putting any and all deadlines and events there as we get them. And so you can always check that calendar for information. So that's what you need to know on the state website right now. Those are the links that are important to you and to your students. On the national site, the competitions and programs, These high school and middle school competitions will be the same thing that you'll find on our state level website. But themes and problems is where that link will take you. The link on our site will take you to the national site for this. For the events that require a theme or a challenge, they are all listed here. You can click on it for the individual events and see what you need to know. So I think before we go any further, probably I need to show you what the competitive event guides look like. So for those of you who are not familiar with it, that will, I think, give you a better understanding. Stop share, share screen. I want this one. All right, so this is, I have some different examples, but this is the high school architectural event guide. So each event has its own event guide. And when you download them, there'll be an overview that just is the basic about what they do in the event. You can ignore the eligibility portion of it because that's who's eligible at the national level. And what you're interested in right now is at the state level. So you can just ignore eligibility and you can ignore the time limits for the most part, because again, those have to do with nationals. Right now, this year, we can even ignore the competitive attire part of it. So when you get down here to procedure, it will tell you how the event actually runs. Again, these event guides are set up by nationals. And so this one might say that the documentation portfolio must be submitted by, this 11:59 p.m. on May 15th. That's for the national conference. So that's what I was saying about our state website having all of that information for the state level competition. So that's where you will check. But going back to the event guide, so it says participants access the annual design challenge found on the TSA website. So that was back to those themes and problems. And so I'll take you back there. And then they prepare an architectural design model. They prepare a documentation portfolio, and then they submit everything. It talks about no more than 2 team members will report, et cetera, et cetera. You can kind of skip a lot of this for now. When you get to the second page, normally that's where you're going to find the specific details about what they're doing. So for this particular event, they put together a documentation portfolio, and it includes all of these things in exactly that order. And it's very specific. It might tell you 1 page, pages as needed, 1 page of this one, a maximum of 6 pages. So it gives the kids the specifics of what they need to be doing. So that's their portfolio. Then you come down here to their model, and it will tell you what size the site board needs to be, and things about the construction materials that are recommended for their model, what they can use, what they can't use. And then most of this at the end, I won't say ignore it because it relates to, leadership in 21st century skills development, related careers, things like that. But that's not, well, the kids are doing their competitive event. That stuff doesn't apply to them. If you keep going through the event guide, if there's any forms, they'll be next. And then you get to the actual rubric that are used. So each event has a go, no go specification. So these are things that are required if they want to compete that they have. But then when you get down here, and you can use this as scoring in a competitive event, or you can use it for grading in the classroom as well. it explains for each component of the competition exactly what the judges are looking at. So for this first one, they might get 1 to 4 points. If it's unorganized or missing components, they might get 5 to 8 points if it has most of the components and is fairly organized. And between 9 and 10 points if all the components are there, the organization is excellent. So the students can see what kind of scores, you know, they will be getting based on what they're turning in. And it explains, you know, how the different, so they can also see that for this one, the documentation portfolio is worth a total of 90 points. The design challenge is worth 50 points and the model is worth 70 points. So then when they're putting time into their competitive event, they know that, you know, a lot of their points are coming from something other than the model. So for each of the competitive events, they're set up the same way. This is a middle school one that doesn't require building anything. This is career prep. This particular event is something I think all kids should participate in, but they get to choose a career to research, and then they write a cover letter and resume as if they have finished their schooling in that career and are applying for an entry-level position. And if they make it into semifinals, they do an interview as if they were at that level. So they have to be very familiar with the career. They have to have done a lot of research about what they might be required to, you know, do in that career, what kind of internships or schooling you'd do if you were going to be applying for that career, what kind of salary range there might be, and so on. So it's something, I actually had a former state officer who won nationals in this event years ago when she was in middle school. And she texted me the other day and said, "Hey Jen, I just want to tell you that the career that I used my 8th grade year when I won nationals is actually the career I'm going into now that I've graduated from college." She said that's just, you know, thought that was funny, but it actually, you know, she had put so much time and effort into it, and it actually was something that she wanted to do. And so I have heard when the kids that do well in this event will do a lot of practice in the community and things. You know, they'll see if the HR person at the, you know, hospital or public utility district or whatever is willing to help them practice their interview skills. And a lot of times those HR people have told me that the kids interview better than any adult they've ever interviewed before. So it's definitely, you know, valuable skills that they're learning by participating. Let's see. This is one of the newer middle school events, the data science and analytics. So again, it goes through, it tells them exactly what they need to do. So there's, for each of the competitive events, there are these event guides and, you know, that have the attached rubrics and forms and everything. So to get these competitive event guides, you have to affiliate with National TSA, and that's paying that initial, you know, $20 per kid. And the kids can't start working on their competitive events until they have these, so that they know what they actually need to do. The events change every 2 years. So, you know, this year I think was I think this year was high school changed. And so sometimes they take away events, sometimes they add events, and then next year middle school will, and then high school and middle school. Having said that, this year all of the competitive event guides changed because there used to be a component called LEAP, which was the National TSA Leadership Program component. And they took that out of all of the competitive event guides and just changed that to include the 21st century skills as part of the competition. So every single, even if it's the same events, every single event guide looks different this year. So that's a good place to start, is by affiliating and downloading those competitive events so that you can share them with the students. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen again and just ask if people have questions, if there's, you know, have I, oh, okay. Let's see. The student, okay. Okay, so a couple of you have said there's a lot of kids in your district who don't have PCs at home. And I will show you again where the student leadership challenge is. And I want to just address that real quick, is there's a lot of the competitive events that don't have a huge component, a huge PC component. You know, if they're doing structural or flight, yes, they have to do some basic word processing for their portfolio, but mostly what they're doing is actually doing the hands-on building and testing and problem solving and rebuilding and retesting and all of that. So that's something that I think we can probably work around for some of the events. Now, there's going to be some like the CAD events where, yes, they're going to have access to a PC with the appropriate software. We're hoping that the schools at some point here will be able to check those out to students as well, just like they would if they were working on TSA while the school was open. But we want to give the schools some time to figure all that out. I know that the first thing they needed to do was get the, you know, get the classes started and get the teachers back teaching, and then figuring out things like CTSOs and clubs and you know, the specialized equipment can wait. I also know that at least what we're hearing is that some schools are saying by November, they think that they should be able to let kids at least sign up for lab access or lab time. And so we're hoping that those kind of things would be a time that a student could access the specialized equipment as well. Having said that, it's one of the reasons that we've put like the robotics competitions on hold, because we don't know what the schools are going to do. We don't know if they're going to try to send every kid home with a robotics kit. I know some schools are saying they are doing that. Other schools don't have access to those kind of resources. So we're just going to wait and see for a little bit. I have to say, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm really struggling with not being able to plan months ahead of time and know exactly what's going to happen and what, you know, what I'm going to be doing and how everything's going to work. I think that's the hardest part of this whole COVID thing, is I feel like I have to be flexible enough to change constantly. And that is not my strength. I really like, you know, I really like my planner. I really like my calendar, all of that. So anyway, okay.
Jennifer, I had a quick question.
Yes.
When that spreadsheet you showed us earlier, was that state competition or national competition?
So it has both on it. Let me pull.
So the ones that are on hold, those are state that are also on hold and national.
Oh, yes. Yes and no. That's at the state level.
Okay, thank you.
For what we're going to do at state. So I will say, and that's a good question. So nationals looked at all of the competitive events and they decided that they could run 50, I think it's 54 of the 74, they could run them virtually. And so when you affiliate and you go to download those competitive event guides, you have an option of doing the competitive event guides or doing what they call virtual event guides. And in my opinion, I mean, what we were saying is just ignore those virtual event guides for now, because all they are is the information about how for the national conference, kids are going to turn those entries in virtually if they have to. And that doesn't help you at the state level. Because we're going to do things differently at the state level this year. You just want the regular competitive event guides. So the difference is that for an event like Dragster, nationals decided that that wasn't an event that they could run virtually. and so it's not offered as a virtual event. What we did in March was just have the kids or the schools ship us those dragsters, and we set up the dragster track in an empty building, and we tested the dragsters and filmed the testing, and then posted that. And we did all of the, we did all the measurements and all of the judging for those entries. We just didn't have the kids there. We just had their entry. And so we've decided that we will run a lot of those events that do have a testing component or a model or whatever. We think that we can make that work. So rather than tossing out 20 of those competitive events, for the most part, we're still going to run all of them with modifications. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's go back to, yes. Share my screen, yes. So when we were talking about the architectural event guide, I said that the theme and challenge is posted on the national site, and it is. So this is, you're back to those themes and problems. So you can access it from our state website, or you can come directly to the national site and access it there. So again, it's competitions and programs, and then down to themes and problems. And you can find all of the themes and challenges there. So if you scroll down to the high school events and go to architectural design, it has you click here, but it comes up with this document, and it is the specifics of the challenge and what exactly they need to do for architectural, all the things that they have to build into their portfolio and what they have to figure out. And it has things like they have to include mechanical, electrical, plumbing, technology systems. They don't have to build them into their model, but they have to consider them and talk about them in their portfolio. And it talks about the foam core board and the size and scale and all of that. So for each of those, not all of them, some of them don't have a theme or a problem. If they're not listed here, then all the information that you will need is in that event guide, and you don't need anything else. But for the most part, the themes and the challenges change each year. So like this year for career prep, they have to select a career from one of these clusters, and it's fairly broad. So it gives them a chance to find something that they want to do. Middle school children's stories, it's an interactive book for elementary grades 3 to 5, thermal energy, weather-related phenomenon. So again, they can't just write a children's story. They have to write it specifically toward this age group and about these, thunderstorms, hurricanes, weather-related issues. So it gives us a chance to, so what we're getting for entries, there's something to compare to. Digital photography this year, I think, the theme is nature. Essays on technology, digital communication. So each one, some of them are very, minimal, just like digital photography, the theme is nature. That gives them a wide scope of choices that they can make for their entries. And something like the architectural is very specific for what they need to do. So what we are going to do this year for the competition side, and it will all be listed on our website, hopefully really soon. But for each event, they will do a portion of it. So let me go back to architectural design. Sure. All right. So So in architectural design, they turn in their portfolio and their model. So our plan this year will be to have them turn in, so in January, they will turn in something like the description of the design challenge and all of their sketches. So that's all that will be turned in January. And the judges will look at that and they will give them feedback on it. In February, their whole portfolio will probably be due. Everything that's required in the portfolio. And then in March, and again, they would get judge feedback on that portfolio. And then in March, they will turn in their model and their revised portfolio. If everything has to be virtual still, then they'll be turning in a video of their model, like a video walkthrough of it, and their revised portfolio. So in each stage, what we will try to do is have them turn in a portion of their event and get judge feedback so that that helps them improve their skills. If it's something like, my mind just went completely blank, where they're building bridges, structural engineering, sorry, where they're building bridges basically. That judge feedback will be really helpful to them as they go through this process. And it will help them improve. And so what we want to do is use this year to really help with the skills development. It's why we're trying to get the videos up for all of the different competitive events so that a kid who's new to an event or an advisor who's new to an event will have a much better idea of what they're trying to accomplish. We're also trying to match up our new advisors with mentors, especially whether that's an overall mentor from a veteran advisor or just if you have questions about the flight competition, this is who you talk to. If you have questions about structural, this is who you talk to. We will have question and answer sessions with our state officers where kids can just log on and ask specific questions about competitive events, and they will either get the answers or we will get them the answers. So we're trying to provide a lot more information so that the students can do a lot more of this work on their own, but they still have access to the resources to answer questions and help them. And also, I mean, we've been trying for years to provide these resources to our advisors as well. We do have the state officers putting together a video right now that's just a range of clips from our competitive events. So it's something that you could share with your students just to give them a sense of what kind of competitions are out there for TSA. All right. Questions about that? Washington only game design challenge. No, let me take you to, okay. On the national site, the national TSA site, they have something, they're calling it Member of the Month. I'm not sure about that title, but anyway, let's see where it is. I know it's linked from their front page. So this, under what's new, this Member of the Month is where those small challenges are. And the students can do, they're supposed to just be fun and engaging and just small activities. And if they do it, then they could submit it and National TSA will do a random drawing to do their Member of the Month. And then they will feature that student or that team on the national site. So for September, it's related to board game design, but it isn't the board game design event. So this one is just, they're supposed to create a simple board game for a 3-year-old to learn letters or colors. And then they just make a video demonstrating the game. They have to submit it by the end of September. For middle school, you're just building the tallest tower possible using a bag of marshmallows and a packet of spaghetti. You just take a picture, you send it in, and they do it that way. So each month, they will be posting a new activity for high school and a new activity for middle school. And those are just something kids could do. So if you have a chapter and maybe the students don't want to do any of the larger events, maybe they just want to do, you know, the leadership videos and these member of the month challenges and not do anything else, that's fine. As a chapter advisor, you choose what level of participation your chapter is going to do. I know sometimes we get a new chapter and they just have the kids try 1 or 2 of the competitive events the first year, and they don't, you know, they maybe would only go to a regional competition and not even try to go to the state conference that year. So others, you know, have 150 members and they compete in every single event that there is possible. So it's just totally up to you. And you don't want to overwhelm yourself and you don't want to overwhelm your students. It's just, you know, we can talk more about it, but it's whatever, whatever you're comfortable with and whatever your kids want to do. Really what we want to do this year is just try to get the kids interested and keep them engaged. There are a lot of kids who don't participate in TSA because they play a school sport and TSA meets at the same time after school as the sports do. There's other kids who don't compete in TSA because they can't afford the cost to go to the state conference. So we're hoping that a lot of those kids, you know, there might be a chapter who never comes to state because they don't have the travel costs available. We're hoping a lot of those kids, a lot of those chapters will actually participate this year and let kids see what opportunities are out there. And it's a different year. So we're trying to be positive about it and look at the opportunities it provides for the schools and the students themselves. Okay, so let's then talk about competition real quick. So I said there's going to be staged deadlines. So there'll be January, February, and March, and that's at the state level. As soon as possible, students will be able to start registering online for their competitive events. Normally, we don't open that registration until the beginning of January, and then they register in January and February and come to the state conference to compete in March. We're doing that differently this year. And we're hoping that we can, normally an advisor will register all of the students in their chapter. We're hoping we can set it up so that students can register themselves individually. If we can't do that, and our management system is still trying to figure out if we can do that. Even if we can't do that and the advisor has to register the kids for the events, we can bill students individually for the costs. And the board made the decision to charge $30 per student, and that covers their competition fees for the whole year. So if we, you know, that will cover the costs of awards and, you know, shipping awards out to kids and live streaming if we have to go virtual for our state conference. It covers all those costs. Well, it might not cover them. We might lose money this year, but the board is willing to do that to try to keep the costs really low. So at the most, a kid would pay $20 to affiliate for the year and get access to all the event guides and leadership and stuff. And then they would pay $30 to do the competitions. And that includes all of the different competition deadlines and the judge feedback and awards at the state level and all of that. So that's something, that's where we're at for costs. Did anybody have questions about that for costs and such?
I just need to clarify, is that still being worked out or is that finalized? I'm sorry, I misunderstood that.
So the costs are set. What we don't know yet is if we can let the students register themselves for their events or if the advisor has to do the registration. We can handle the financial part of it individually with the kids if we need to, but I'm not positive that we can let them register themselves because normally it's behind a username and password for the advisor.
Yeah, I would almost, this is Myron from Kittitas, I would almost prefer having the advisors register the kids and work with the kids and stuff like that. I think that could end up as a big goat rope if we let kids register themselves.
Okay, well, and that's something that I wanted to ask everybody for that input from advisors. If you would rather do that and, you know, then, and same with the costs. You know, some of our schools pay the entry fee costs for kids to compete and some don't. So we're willing to work chapter by chapter for those kind of things. We just need to know. So any other feedback from people as to whether they'd rather let kids register themselves or have the advisors do it? No?
I think it'd be better if the advisors did it. We would just have more accountability and it's easier to keep track of what's going on. It's also more consistent with the other CTSOs.
Yep. Okay, so most of you are saying advisors. So the other piece of the competition is that if kids are signed up for an event and they don't turn in their entry in January or they don't turn in their entry in February, then they will be dropped from that event. And so that helps us know who's actually competing because we might get 100 kids that sign up for, you know, board game design, but only 50 of them actually are doing anything. And so we'll know that earlier in the year so that that gives us a better idea of how many judges we need for an event and things like that. So they will have those will be hard deadlines in January and February for the portions of the competitive events, and then obviously in March. And what the other part we haven't made a decision on yet is that, you know, say miraculously there's a vaccine that comes out at the end of the year and say kids go back to school in January, just like normal, which they may or may not. But even then, we're not sure that schools would let kids travel. We're not sure that parents would let kids travel. So obviously we are leaning towards the fact that we'll probably have to have a virtual state conference in March. But we will look at other options. You know, maybe we have drop sites, or maybe I go to different areas and pick up student entries. We haven't gotten to all of those pieces yet. So there are definitely still things that we are making decisions on. But we do know for sure that we will be doing the deadlines in January and February and then March. So if we are a virtual conference in March, this past year, because we had never done something like that before and everything was crazy and shutting down daily, we just ran it in the same time frame that we normally would have run the state conference. So we ran it from Wednesday night to Saturday morning. And I don't think I slept in that entire time period. It was insane because we ran all 75 of our competitive events in that time frame. No, that's not true. We didn't run robotics, but we ran everything else. So we were testing and judging and taking entries and sending them out to the judges and tabulating scores and all of that. And what we learned is that's probably too short of a time frame to do something like this. The other thing we don't know yet is will students be allowed to do something like a competition during the school day? Or will they be required, normally they would leave school and they would go to the event for the 3 days and then they would go home and they would, have to make up those classes. But if classes are online, we don't even know if they'll be allowed to miss those classes while they're competing in a CTSO event, or if it'll be something that we have to just run after school and weekends. And if that's the case, then we would have to stretch it out over a longer time frame, but we don't want it to drag on forever. So those are all things that we are still being flexible. And back to the part about, I really prefer to be able to, organize and make decisions ahead of time. I'm struggling a bit with this, but we're just going to be flexible and wait and see what the situation is at the time. So we won't make a final decision on that until at least January. But we will let you know as we are making decisions, and we will ask for input. Yes, it is a nightmare. But we do know that those January and February deadlines will be virtual, and those dates are set. And so it's something that the kids can be working toward and know that those are firm deadlines. So having got to that point, back to questions that you have, things that have come into your head while we're going through all of this. No. Okay, so then I want to take a few minutes and ask you guys some questions, and you can just throw your answers into the chat. The first one is, what are your biggest concerns about student access for something like this? Okay, so access to the internet, computer compatibility, school and district permission to start clubs up. I've heard from a lot of districts that they're still waiting on that. Their tech people were getting the classes up and running first, and then they'll get around to setting up clubs, things like that. Some of the schools are further ahead than everybody else, and some are still waiting, but there's plenty of time. If we just talk about procrastination, a lot of the kids will say, yeah, it would be great. Next year I'm going to start in September, but they never do. So don't panic. We're fine. They wouldn't be starting anyway. Some of the technology for the individual kids and the individual schools is going to be an issue. Some will have access to everything. And some of the students are simply going to have to maybe keep that in mind when they decide what competitions they want to do. Because some of the competitions do not require a lot of technology or access to specific equipment, and other ones do. And I'm also interested to know this year and to see, I've had some advisors say, oh no, we can't run the dragster competition because they have to use all the equipment at school. But they really don't. They could do everything that they need to do with an X-Acto knife and a sanding block. It would just take longer, and it, the testing might not be as good and all of that kind of stuff, but it's not impossible by any stretch of the imagination. So some of it, I think, might encourage the kids to be a little bit more innovative in solving problems and figuring out how to do things. And I don't think that that's a bad idea. We are talking about career and technical education, you know, so it's a lot of figuring out those hands-on, you know, it's problem solving. It's solving the challenges. So somebody said, oh, they've distinguished between clubs and CTSOs. And I think that that's something that more of the schools are probably going to have to do. And they may have to make decisions about, you know, what programs, what CTSOs, clubs, activities they actually do. The other thing is that right now, you know, we don't have any of the school sports happening, but, and it'll be interesting if in the spring, if those do happen and what schools choose to participate and not, and, you know, if that impacts anything as well. Okay, so those were the concerns, meeting ASB guidelines and requirements. So that's, Hope said that the biggest problem is meeting the ASB guidelines and requirements. We designed that personal student leadership challenge to meet some of those student leadership guidelines. We do realize that ASB requires a certain number of, you know, meetings and minutes and things like that each year. I am hoping that, you know, whether it comes from OSPI or the district administrators and things like that, that they will relax some of those requirements. And honestly, I'm not sure that anybody's really checking them normally. And there will be a lot less paperwork for, you know, finances and things like that as well. Our recommendation, Hope, is that they do the personal leadership challenge first, and just because it gives them a chance to look at what they want to try to accomplish this year. And you may, you know, precede that with, you know, these are the things as the advisor that I'm thinking we want to accomplish this year, and then use that for your goal setting. But even if it's not, even if they do that leadership challenge not related to TSA, because some of it's just personal and not even related to TSA and leadership, and some of it relates specifically to TSA and leadership. But if they start there, it's a great way to do it. And then you can move from there to the competitive events, and at least you can show it, you know, as far as ASB and everything goes, that you are working on leadership, student leadership, even if they're not up in front of a class running a chapter meeting. Okay, so then the next question that I wanted input on is what can we do for you? Whether it's resources or more information or a user guide or anything else, what do you need from us the most? Sometimes it's hard to know what to ask before you really get into it. Okay. So we had a user's guide last year, and then they changed the association management system. And so I need to do it again to go with it. We will do Q&As. We're creating a chapter advisor forum where you can, on the website, on our state website, you can just post questions and get answers, whether it's from me or the state officers or from other chapter advisors. They can answer if they know those answers. Would you rather see something like Memo Mondays? Normally, I just send emails out to advisors when there's information that I need to share. But we could change the way we do that, and there could just be more like a newsletter kind of a thing that went out to every Monday that had those reminders, the information, the deadlines, and that would be a place you could go back and check if you missed something or forgot something or whatever. It would be okay, you guys like that idea. Okay, so we will work on the reference guide. We will work on the, okay. I will make notes here. And okay. So I know it's only 4:30, but I think we've gone through all of the information. I don't want to overload you guys completely. So I think I've gone through everything that I think you probably need to know right from the start. What other questions do you have, or concerns, or, you know, help? I don't know where to start. No, probably no one has a problem with ending early. Myron, I don't know what else you could do on a Friday night and you don't want my input. It probably depends on where you live. And unfortunately, where you live, you don't have as many options as some other people. I am always available to answer questions. You can send me an email. You can call me. Most of you probably have my my number, but it is, I will give it to you. It is 541-490-8466. Let me just type it in here. No. Okay, so you can call me at that. You can email me. I have a team of 6 state officers from around the state. These are very competent young men and women who also can answer a lot of the questions and would be available to do like a online chapter meeting if you wanted to set it up so that your chapter did a Zoom meeting with 1 or 2 of the state officers and they could just ask any questions and, you know, tell them how things went. We can set up any of that as well. And they are, most of them have been in TSA for, you know, 4, 5, 6 years. So they're very knowledgeable. They've competed in a lot of the different events. So that's, you know, they're a good resource as well. They are on our website. You can, their emails are, but if you'd like to set up a chapter meeting with some of them for your kids, we can do that too. I think it's a good option. Normally they'd come to your school and do that. And obviously we're not doing that right now, but the advisors have told me that it's really helpful when they've had a state officer come in and interact with the kids. Just it's a different perspective and such. So.
Would they be willing to do a welcome to TSA Zoom that we could log into for our brand new students, or just a welcome back to school?
Yeah.
Maybe they could put one together with uniforms and cool stuff or whatever, but
yeah.
If you send it out, then we could show kids what's available.
Yes, and so they are working on that right now, along with that competitive event video that they're putting together.
Okay.
That's just like the competitive event highlights. So they can, those will be videos that you'll have access to you can direct your kids to them to watch. But they'd be happy to do in-person ones as well. Oh, the other thing that we're doing this year, and it isn't something that we've tried before, so I don't know how successful it will be, but we have created TSA t-shirts, sweatshirts, masks, things like that. And they will be online, and individuals can just go online and order them directly if they want to. So it won't be something that needs to run through the school. It'll be something that the kids can just do. They may want to, they may not want to. I don't care, but it's something we thought we would do. Stickers. The stickers are the other thing, because we've had tons of requests for TSA stickers.
Will those be on the Washington State TSA site?
They will, as soon as we get
Okay.
the link up there. Yep,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, any other questions that I can answer? No? Okay. Well, I will wrap this up. I will send a summary of this out to you guys. I'll share the PowerPoint and things like that as well, all of the resources. So you can look for those next week. And other than that, if you have questions, email me, call me. I am always available to, okay, not always, but I'm available to you whenever, and my job is to help you figure this out and get your chapter started and get it running and answer questions and everything. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet all of you, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.